Welcome to Grounded Wellness, your go-to podcast for simplified and trusted information on how to live a more non-toxic and holistic life. We're your hosts. I'm Bethany McDaniel, founder of Primally Pure, biohacking enthusiast and mom of 3.
And I'm Courtney O'Connor, a holistic esthetician with over 15 years experience in the healing power of touch and holistic skincare rituals.
In this episode of Grounded Wellness, I'm sitting down with my assistant Grace, whose journey with acne has become quite popular within the Primally Pure community. Grace didn't want chronic acne to be her story, but she's owned it proudly and impacted thousands of people with hope and a tangible action plan for addressing the root causes of acne. Her appearances on Instagram were so highly requested by the Primally Pure community that we knew having her on Grounded Wellness was an absolute must. Grace's story brings deep restorative hope and enlightenment that you are not broken and every issue in your body stems from a root cause. We're also going to bring in functional medicine provider Taylor Dukes, who helps us unpack exactly how she helps Grace get to the root cause of acne for her unique situation. Let's dig in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grounded Wellness. We are here at the farm, and I am with my assistant, Grace, and my good friend and Grace's functional medicine provider, Taylor Dukes. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Have you guys tried your liver smoothie yet?
I work for you and have liver smoothies all the time.
I wasn't sure about it, but it's so good.
Yeah, you like it? Good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. Yeah, it's my favorite way to mask that livery taste. Otherwise, I just don't get around to like cooking actual liver and getting it in that way.
Right.
Yeah, but this is a good way to disguise it. Let's dig right in to Grace's story. So Grace, you started working for me about a year and a half ago now. Mm-hmm. And when we met, you didn't really have any obvious acne, but you were on several prescription medications at the time. Take us back to when your journey with acne and breakouts started and just walk us through all of that.
Yeah. So I started having acne at your typical like turning point age, like 13, 14 years old, when you're just going through puberty and you're becoming kind of like a teenager. And it was just at the time, just a few pimples, nothing crazy, but society has just kind of this like setup where just when you get acne, the first thing you do is go to a dermatologist. That's just kind of how it works. So I did that. My parents suggested it, and I mean, they didn't know any better either, but right away I went there, and off the bat, I was on steroid cream. So adapalene is where we started, and then as my acne got worse, because as we know, that's not gonna heal it, it's just gonna kind of mask it. I transitioned into clindamycin phosphate, tretinoin, and rounds of doxycycline for years. And I only stopped it about 9 months ago, I think now. And so that's almost a decade of steroid creams and medication.
Wow. And we're going to get into more of your perspective, Taylor, but I real quick want to hear from you on this idea of prescribing antibiotics to treat acne. What are your thoughts on that?
I get real fired up because it's one of those things that I feel like a lot of times we suppress symptoms, and just put a Band-Aid over it. Even if it's a prescription, it just kind of suppresses. It doesn't actually get to the root cause of why the acne is occurring. But in this situation, not only does it suppress it, but it also makes it worse because we know that when we're taking antibiotics for long periods of time, and in Grace's case, years, which that's a lot of other people's stories, it's not only suppressing it, but it's also making it worse. It's messing up the gut microbiome. It's leading to candida and fungal overgrowth. And so I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, I mean, me too, because the same thing happened to me in high school. I was prescribed several rounds of antibiotics for acne, and it's something that you have to like continue to take. And because like you said, it makes it worse, it disrupts the gut. And then, so what's the solution? Okay, maybe just do the same thing again.
Yeah.
And then just keep doing it. And even though it's totally not a solution at all. And it's shocking to me that dermatologists are still running that same broken play almost 20 years later. Like, right. What are we doing here? Grace, talk to us about the moment that you decided to ditch all of your prescriptions and heal your acne naturally.
At the time, I had been working for you probably for about 7-8 months. And when I first started working for Bethany, it wasn't like super frequent. It was kind of just random hours, random days. But as we got probably to like 6-7 months is when I started working for you a lot more. And I started to really be influenced by your lifestyle and the things that you had to say, the things that you did.
Now, what did you think of everything at first? Because in the beginning, I know you were in our home off and on because you were also helping with my kids here and there. Was it just so weird to you, like how we ate and all the different things that we did?
Yeah, it was definitely like weird.
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. So for everyone who is listening and not watching, we are recording at a farm, a live working farm, and a branch just flew right into Taylor's face. So pardon the interruption. A little caught off guard, but oh my gosh. Are you okay?
I'm like crying laughing.
Oh my gosh.
That's so funny. Okay, so was Bethany weird?
Love that for you.
Like,
so what's back to Bethany being weird? Yes. So
that was funny.
yeah, I mean, like, so yes, but also like I have always been like pretty open-minded, so I kind of wasn't like, I wasn't being super judgy. I was more like curious, like, oh wait, you don't have a microwave? Why? What do you do instead? Like, just because I wasn't used to things like that. And it was just like a lot of random gadgets, like a PEMF mat. What is that? Never heard of that in my life. So like, I just had a lot of questions for you.
Yeah, I remember that. I liked that. You were just very curious.
Yeah, like I wanted to learn. I wanted to try. I
Yeah.
was like always open and down for it. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so you were kind of getting exposed to
Yes.
this different lifestyle, and you saw the video.
Yes, so there was this one specific video on Instagram that Bethany posted on the Primarily Pure Instagram, and it was all about tretinoin and like the negative effects that tretinoin has long-term on your body. And I, at the time, was on tretinoin, and I had been on tretinoin probably for 2 or 3 years. And it had been working for me. I think that's another thing that's unique. A lot of people turn to holistic healing because things aren't working, but I didn't have that problem. Like, it would work. Like it would work for at least a few years, and then I would need to transition to something else. But like for me, like that was fine. Like it did work. So I didn't really have any reason to change except for that video being so specifically targeted at what I was doing and why it was going to be bad for me long term. And so I was just like, all right. Like, I mean, my acne's been gone for a while anyways. I'm not a teenager anymore. Like, I could just swap. I like work for Primarily Pure anyways. Like, let's just start using Primarily Pure. And so I just did, like literally overnight.
So walk us through the process of switching to entirely non-toxic skincare. What did that look like? Was it hard to make some of those changes? Were you nervous?
I wasn't nervous. I was just like, cool, new thing, moving on with life. Until like a couple weeks in when some more pimples started showing up, but it was, again, mild at first. So I was just like, okay, like it's probably a purging period, skin's adapting to something new. And then like it got to week 4 and it was just still a few more pimples. Like it just like the purging didn't seem to stop after the 2 to 3 weeks that we had kind of been expecting. So that's when I went to you and was just kind of like, hey, like, should I use any different product lines? Like what do you recommend?
Yeah, I remember that. And I was really proud of you for approaching me and talking through what you were dealing with me. Was that difficult for you to have that conversation with me? How did you feel in that moment?
It was like kind of difficult. I don't know. It was very like random. It wasn't something I'd been planning to ask you necessarily. And it also didn't all happen in one conversation. Like we had a couple like leading up to it where I had just been telling you like, oh, just so you know, I swapped my products and just kind of like giving you updates. And so it was more just like, hey, like, do you think I should stick with this line? Should I maybe change from a cream to a serum? Like just little things like that. And you hearing those questions, even though they were just kind of little minor questions, prompted more suggestion. And I felt like it was a pretty natural conversation, honestly.
Yeah, it was. And so at this point, when things were not improving, they were starting to get a little bit worse, we, after several conversations, decided to dive into this 30-day experiment.
Yes.
So tell our listeners what the 30-day experiment entailed.
The 30-day experiment. Well, it wasn't 30 days. Start there.
Didn't end up being 30 days.
Did not end up being 30 days. But I remember being so excited when you first had the idea. We were just in the CVS parking lot after filming one of our Instagram reels. And you had said, you know what, like, here, let's have you, like I said, swap the cream for a serum. Let's start with that. I want you to start using the clarifying mask as well. And it was just Primarily Pure at first. And then when we left that conversation, drove off our separate ways, I got a voice memo from you. And you're like, Grace, I have this awesome idea, actually. We should do an experiment with you and we can document the whole thing and it'll be so cool. And we'll have you change your diet. We'll have you get rid of all your cleaning products, like any toxic products, toss the toxins. Like we'll work with Branch Basics, we'll work with Primal Pastures, and we'll work with Primally Pure. And we'll just do everything and we'll document the whole thing and see where you go from day 1 to day 30. And I was like, stoked.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, let's do that. That's so fun. What a cool idea.
Yeah, I remember being really excited about that too, because initially you had swapped your products out, but you were still, eating the same types of foods that you had been eating, the same lifestyle habits. So we really just changed a lot when we decided to do that 30-day experiment. And you were like gung-ho. That's what I loved. Like you were so all in to make these changes and you were committed, and it made it really fun to go through that process with you.
For sure.
But as we know, things continued to get worse, even after we had made all of these positive changes to first the products, then diet and lifestyle, so many things. So what did that feel like? Like, I remember we were both confused. You were starting to get pretty distressed. You had an engagement on the horizon. I remember you got extensions as a confidence booster, and you were telling me that there were some moments where it was just really hard to even leave the house because things had gotten so bad. So tell us about what that was like and how hard that was for you.
Yeah, I think it was definitely disheartening just because we were both so confident at the beginning that 30 days and you're gonna notice these changes. Like you're just like, this is so tried and true. Because it is, we know now, and I didn't know at the time, but I definitely know now, diet is so linked to acne, gut health is linked to acne, and that is the perfect place to start. And on top of diet, I had these very trusted products with Primally Pure. We know the process, our quality of ingredients is top tier. Branch Basics is the cleanest of the clean. We were using really high quality stuff too. So it was almost I can't do better than this. How is this not working for me? What's going on here? And so it was definitely disheartening. And I had never had acne like that in my life. Obviously I've struggled with acne for years, but that was next level. If you guys have seen photos on Instagram, and if you haven't, you should look, because it's crazy. It was everywhere. And it was in places I'd never gotten it before either. So it just felt like so weird and abnormal to see my face look like that, to feel the pain. It was painful. I didn't want to leave the house because of the look of it, but also just it hurt. All I wanted to do was constantly live in a face mask and lay down. There was nothing really I wanted to be doing. And so, yeah, it was dark times out there, but I also knew that I was in the best care. I had you as my support system, and pretty soon after this started getting worse, you brought in Taylor. And so there was hope on the horizon, and I knew I had to stick with it because I was already this far in. I'm very stubborn, so I'm not going to turn back at this point. Otherwise I would have had to just go through this to have to maybe do that again. If I ever wanted to be off of this medication, there's gonna have to be a process.
Right, and some of the things that you were on, with this engagement, coming up, and then the wedding, it was kind of you knew you also wanted to start a family in the future, and some of these prescriptions that you were on, you would not have been able to continue on had you wanted to, start a family. So it's something that I remember you telling me, you knew that this would have to happen eventually. Eventually, you would need to get to the root cause of it. So, why not now?
That was a big thing that kept me going, because I was if I could be on those products while I was pregnant, which I'm not pregnant, by the way, at all, or close.
Just an announcement?
No, but Lord willing, in the future, I knew that eventually this would happen, and so definitely had to keep going.
And I know also you mentioned that several people in your life were once it started getting worse, they were you just need to go on Accutane.
Yeah.
What was that like, hearing that from loved ones?
Part of me felt bad for them, just because now when I hear about people who have done Accutane or who are on steroid creams and antibiotics, I honestly have pity, because I'm I've been there, and it's just so sad because I know what's happening. And Lord willing, this isn't going to happen to them, but there are just so many stories of people who are on that stuff who then end up having such severe problems down the road. And I just feel bad, and I just want to sit and spitball facts at them as to why they shouldn't do it. But that's not always appropriate in the setting. So I knew that wasn't for me. I never considered Accutane, but when people would say that, I would honestly just like get sad. Like, I wish you guys understood. Like, I wish I could sit and explain it. And now I'm so blessed with the opportunity to sit and explain it. But at the time, it just kind of, it just kind of felt bad.
Yeah.
They thought their only option or my only option.
So we talked about how this was confusing. We weren't sure like why we were doing all the right things. And now with the information we know, like it makes sense why things weren't getting better right away. But we had to do some testing to figure that out. And so
There's a pig.
got a pig approaching us. So we brought in Taylor Dukes at this point, like when we just realized that there had to be deeper things going on that we needed to get answers to. And so we were following this plan, not seeing the progress that we wanted to see. And then you came into the picture, Taylor. Can you walk us through some of the tests that you ran on Grace and what you discovered from those results?
Anytime, whether someone comes to me with bloating, constipation, and by the way, I had a private practice. I don't have a private practice anymore. And so I think I had stopped working with patients at that point. Bethany's like, hey, I have this situation. And I was like,
help.
Yes. And I was like, okay, I'm
SOS.
so down. But anyway, all that to say, when I worked with patients over the years, there's always a why, you know, and you have to ask the why question. So whether it's acne, infertility, bloating, constipation, there's always a reason. And I feel like when people don't make headway, that's when I say it's time to test and not guess, because you could be guessing and spiraling and reading blog posts. And I know a lot of people identify with that because they're trying to go down rabbit trails or Instagram accounts. And it's like, no, you know, everybody's different. And so on Grace, we did a lot of tests because we were determined.
Test it up.
And at this point, you had the wedding on the horizon, right?
Oh gosh. I think actually no.
No,
I
but it was approaching. It was
anticipating the engagement at this point.
Got it. Okay.
But it was pretty close to the engagement when Taylor came into the picture.
Because
right?
I do remember feeling like, you know, true root cause healing can take a long time, but if there's a pending wedding engagement, like I'm not sure it's going to heal in this amount of time.
Yeah.
And so anyway, all that to say, we did stool testing, which is gut testing. We did nutrient testing. We did hormone testing. We did food sensitivity testing. Anything else? Oh, we did adrenal cortisol testing. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to talk about like what we found?
Yeah, what did we discover?
So Grace did a lot of tests and we really cast out the net. And really, I don't do that many tests in the beginning. I usually start with one or two, usually a gut test, because that will tell so much. But because of the wedding and just having a timeline, I felt like, let's just cast the net. We don't have time to wait. Let's just figure everything out and personalize a protocol. And so I remember getting your stool test back. I think I sent you all a voice memo and I was like,
You did.
oh my God.
Yes.
I have it saved.
And I played it for Grace, right away. And we were like so excited.
There were answers.
have
The
an
opening
answer.
line was, you guys, Grace's gut is no bueno. And we were like, yes.
Yeah. It was like, it could have been such a bleak text message to hear, but because of everything that Grace had gone through and because we hadn't had answers, it just felt like, okay, great. Now
Like
we
some
have
hope, something to work
a direction to work. Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people in kind of the integrative medicine world, you know, sometimes they go the holistic route because they're desperate. And it's like they've been told nothing's wrong and their labs are normal when they're going to traditional doctors or dermatologists or whatever, you know. And so people are always so thankful. They're like, thank God I have a parasite. or that I have, you know, and like
finally.
you don't want to rejoice when something's wrong, but you are grateful because you have answers. And so I do remember voice memoing y'all being like, I'm so pumped. There's so much wrong with her gut. And we had to,
Yay!
because that to me is like, there's so much hope, you know, because it's discouraging. You're eating healthy, ditching the toxins, doing all the right things, and you're getting worse, you know?
And I think it's interesting too. Most people immediately with acne, they go to hormones, but her hormones were okay.
And I knew that from the beginning. And I will say part of the way that I practice, just after being in this world for 10, 12 years, you know, it's like, I do have a lot of discernment. Like I can sit with the patient and I do need labs to back it up sometimes, but I'm like, I feel like this is the issue, and I've just had enough experience to piece the puzzle pieces together. But I just knew, I was like, I feel like fungal's at play here. I feel like her gut's at play, even though you didn't have a ton of gut symptoms, which.
No.
Yeah.
That was another thing that was weird is I feel like the only thing I had that I noticed was acne. But we come to find out there was more. But
it
like,
was an alarm system.
That's what I saw.
But we all manifest
Differently.
issues in different ways, right? So that was just where your body was vulnerable, was acne and your skin, and
Right out the
versus, you know, if someone else's gut was super messed up, they might have experienced it in a different way.
Sure.
And I remember, so getting back the gut test first, you had dysbiosis, which is just a fancy word for overgrown pathogens, pathogenic bacteria. You had candida fungal overgrowth. You had 2 parasites, which is really crazy because it's so hard to catch a parasite on a traditional stool test. The one that I use, which is the best stool test in my opinion, they have only 5 or 6 parasites. And you tested high for 2 of them, which was crazy because it's hard to catch parasites in the ovicycle and and just different things like that. And then it just happens to be in that bowel movement, right?
And just so this was confusing to me at first, but so just to clarify, when you say 2 parasites, 2 types of parasites.
2 different types.
But like
probably a lot
however many, little parasites, it's
There's
not like
so many that are not tested too, that we don't even know, right? Some you can test via blood, some you can, anyway. There's lots of different ways to test, but she had 2 positive parasites, fungal overgrowth, bad overgrown bacteria. Your digestion was super compromised, which also I'm really passionate on. It's not just what you eat, even if it's high quality, it's what you digest and absorb. And so we ended up finding out that she was super nutrient deficient in a lot of different nutrients, which would make sense. She wasn't absorbing. And then I'm trying to think what else. You had a leaky gut for sure, which was then causing you to react to a lot of foods. And so food sensitivities are different than allergies. Allergies are true like hives, swelling of the tongue, that's more a serious reaction, but food sensitivities can still cause a lot of issues. Sorry, our geese friends are chatting over here. But you had a lot of food sensitivities. You were off the charts in gluten, even in dairy. I remember peanuts and then eggs was
and
a really
some random
surprising
things like pineapple.
Yeah.
And like bromelain.
Which is just an indicator that you have a leaky gut. And when people have food sensitivities, I'm like, don't avoid it forever. This is just you have a leaky gut. It's permeable. Things are getting into the bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there. So that's why you heal and seal the gut. But yeah, you were reacting to a ton of foods. I definitely saw cortisol patterns of someone that's been long-term stress, burning, the candle at both ends. You were depleted of your B vitamins, which can also be related to stress. So yeah, just overall super nutrient depleted, lots of gut issues, stress definitely had been at play, and I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, leaky gut.
how big of a role did the years of antibiotic usage have in all of the gut disruption that Grace
Probably
was
one of the
dealing
biggest contributing factors to the acne, which is what I said in the beginning of the episode. I get so fired up because not only does it suppress it, it actually fuels it and makes it worse. And so in Grace's case, it had disrupted her good gut bacteria. It allowed the pathogenic, kind of the bad bugs to overgrow. And then it had allowed your secretory IgA, which is an immune marker. It's kind of the army of your gut. It goes to defend pathogens. That was suppressed. So that's why you came into contact with parasites and they started affecting you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just the perfect storm. But I think the leaky gut, the way that your gut became the way that it is because of chronic long-term use of antibiotics and maybe diet too. I mean, that was for sure.
I think diet for sure too.
Yeah.
Can anyone who is listening please send this episode to your dermatologist friends, because there is no way this should still be happening. How is this happening? This is
We're
like one of the
friends with
most
acne. Like y'all have to know.
like treatments for acne.
Yeah.
So Taylor, talk us through then the protocol that you had Grace go on to fix these specific things that we now had answers on.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, because I remember, and I didn't know you, and I didn't know the whole situation, the context. I kind of just came in and was like, yeah, let's do it. This is what I do, and I'm thankful for answers, but I was like, this is a lot. Like, this is a lot, because
hefty.
I don't normally order that many labs at once. We usually tackle one thing at a time, but we wanted to rule out, is it hormones? Which actually, Grace's hormones, that was not your issue. You did have some issues metabolizing and detoxing certain hormones that we needed to do some liver support for. But in your case, like, that wasn't the issue. A lot of people think it's just hormonal acne. And so I remember being like, okay, Grace, this is a lot. And I don't normally put people on this much of a protocol, but we're going. And so we put you on definitely nutrients you were deficient in, like magnesium, B vitamins, and omega. And then we also put you on the One, which is my supplement. It's like a food-based, just broad spectrum, covers a lot of bases. We put you on digestive enzymes, and then the gut protocols I like to do one at a time because it's too much to do everything at once. You got to kind of tackle each one at a time. So we did parasite protocol, and then we also did multiple parasite protocols after that. You kind of pulse dose it with the full moon. And then we did the overgrown. It was very specific herbs to Grace's overgrown pathogenic bacteria. I'm trying to think, what else did we do? We did GI immune support, right?
We did.
Yeah, which is it's like it's not a dairy-free colostrum because you can't get dairy-free colostrum, but it's basically concentrated immunoglobulins that were dairy-free for her because she couldn't tolerate dairy. And then Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. When we heal people's guts and we rebalance things, like you were created for your body to handle these things. It's abnormal to not. You know, when everyone's like, I'm on an elimination diet forever, that's questionable. But I do think that our food is not what it used to be too. But anyway, so it was a lot that you were on. And then I said, hey, here's the deal. You know, I'm a nurse practitioner and I very rarely use prescriptions, but I do have my license and there are about 10 meds that I've prescribed in my practice. And I couldn't prescribe for Grace because I'm in Texas and she's in California. But I said, I really want you to go talk to your doctor about getting a 30-day antifungal prescription because her markers were so high. And you can do Candida fungal protocol diets and supplements and herbs, which we did do, but sometimes you just got to hit it. And hit it hard, and it doesn't disrupt the gut like it does, you know, antibiotics. And so I said, just go see if you can get this prescription through a doctor, and you did.
Yeah, I walked in.
What was that like?
That was actually funny because they're like not used to people coming in knowing exactly what's wrong with them and what they need. Like
And what dosage and how long.
Yeah, and I was like, this is what I have. Here's my test. See that this is high. I need this specific prescription. I need it for 30 days. And they're like, how do you know all of this? And I was like, oh, because I have been seeing like a functional medicine practitioner. And they were like, well, if it's for acne, we have a dermatologist like on site. And I was like, no, I want this.
Yeah, you gotta advocate though.
Yeah, you have to advocate. And it was a really unique experience because for years I would just go to dermatologists and doctors where you just kind of sit in and say yes to whatever they tell you. But this was like very reverse. But they listened. Like I did kind of have to be like strong in it. And when they at first were like, we suggest this, like you have to say no. And you have to know your facts and do your research. But yeah, that was fun.
I'm proud of you for advocating. And I was like, we're going to find a way, but I can't really do that, not being licensed in that state. But so she did incorporate, and that's what I want people to hear me say is I'm not anti-prescription. I'm not anti-medicine. I think it has a time and place, but I am anti-throwing antibiotics in the name of acne treatment, you know? And so in this situation, she did take a prescription. And that was only one, and it was for 30 days. But the rest of it was herbs and supplements and diet and lifestyle and nervous system regulation. It wasn't, it was majority healthy, holistic, but we did have to use one pharmaceutical, and that's okay. There's times and places.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I want to talk about ozone too, because we did incorporate ozone therapy into your healing protocol. We used ozonated olive oil on your skin. And we also did ozonated water, a lot of ozonated water in the mornings, you and I. Do you want me to touch on that or do you want to touch on that?
I was going to say, Bethany, ozone is still new to me and I'm still learning, but you know, so you should touch on it.
Okay, and Taylor is well-versed in ozone as well, so let me know if my understanding,
You're my ozone
you can fill in any gaps.
She's an ozone queen, she knows.
So fill in any gaps in my understanding of ozone, but ozone is O3, oxygen is O2, so ozone is oxygen with an extra molecule, and so pathogenic bacteria cannot live in oxygen-rich environments, but good bacteria thrive in oxygen-rich environments. So ozone is great because that extra molecule goes in, attaches itself to pathogenic bacteria, and destroys it. Yeah. And so that's why the ozonated cream that we used on your skin, we added that in. When did we add that in?
Probably like 2 months or so after I had been like straight Primally Pure products. Okay. So it was fairly early on. It wasn't like...
So because of the strong fungal component, that helped a ton with your acne. I remember when you started using the ozonated olive oil. Yeah. I feel like that made a big difference. And then taking the ozonated water, drinking the ozonated water internally also helped to kill off some of the all the pathogens, bacteria
all the bad bugs that weren't supposed to be there that were causing issues.
Yeah. So I feel like that was a helpful piece as well. And fasting. Let's talk about fasting a little bit.
So that was funny because fasting like came really easy to me. So I fasted the goal was a week. I made it to 4 days. It was my first ever attempt.
I thought your goal was 3 days and you exceeded it.
No, my goal was a week. Okay. I was like, I'm going to do a week.
4 days, that's impressive.
Yeah, but I'd never even fasted like intentionally at least one day before. So it was like my first ever attempt. I did feel like very clean afterwards. Like you said, fasting, it cleans out your body, right? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it activates autophagy, and autophagy is your body's like self-cleaning mechanism. Right. So it kind of clears out all of the old or malfunctioning cell parts and replaces them with newer, better functioning cell parts. So I remember seeing a difference in your skin after you did that 4-day fast. I feel like it helps things move things along.
So did y'all do just water fast?
Yeah, it was just water and electrolytes.
Yeah.
Your salt.
I love it.
I also remember just watching your skin, watching your face, and just seeing your face shape like transform throughout this journey. That was kind of wild.
Yeah, that was something I didn't quite notice right away until I started looking at the pictures, like over the weeks. Because I would take an update picture every week of the sides, the front, and yeah, like I lost a ton of inflammation in my body. I never felt like I had it in the first place. It just was my body shape and my body type. But you look at, like, I was in a wedding in August, and I look at my photos from that wedding as a bridesmaid, and then like I was in another wedding just recently, like 3 days ago, and like the difference, like my whole body, I feel like just skinnied out. Like it was all inflammation. It wasn't even like excessive weight gain. It was just inflammation.
Yeah.
After going on Taylor's specialized protocol for you, a lot of things started to change kind of at the same time. I feel like Taylor's protocol, the ozone, the fasting, like all of that was when we were kind of like, okay, let's pull in every measure we can because we are on a timeline and this needs to, we need to fix this.
Yeah.
And so how did that feel? You continued doing everything you had been doing, so none of that changed, but everything started to change in your skin like really quickly.
Yeah, so I got engaged in December, and that's honestly when my acne was at its peak, which was a bummer, but also like it was sweet that my fiance did not care and loved me in the moment, was still special, but it definitely wasn't ideal. So I wanted to push off like our engagement photos like as long as possible. I didn't want to do it right then because I didn't love it. But by February, that's when
January is when we connected.
Yeah, well, we did the testing, I think, like December-ish.
Did we?
And then like started the protocol in January.
That's what I remember, because I remember being like, oh my gosh, if she has a short engagement, I don't know that we're going to see this much headway.
Yeah.
But you were encouraged because you're like, I'm starting to see that.
Well, it was quick, honestly. Like I think it was quicker than any of us expected because February was the engagement photos and you couldn't even tell by February. Wow. Like insane. And then, I mean, I was wearing makeup for those photos, and so there was some things I had to cover up. But even February is when the main change happened. And then by my wedding, which was June, I feel like there was like hardly anything. So we were so thankful for that and blessed. Like it did happen really quickly.
Yeah.
So you were happy with the state of your skin on your wedding day?
Yes. And like I tell people who ask me now,
So
like,
sweet.
they were like, are you like fully healed? Are you ready? And I'm like, no, I think I'm still healing for sure. But now it's just a long game. And the little pimples I have now are so minor and like, I don't care. Like, whereas I used to maybe have cared, like now that I've like felt the worst of the worst, it's really just minor changes now and like keeping up with a clean diet and clean living. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. Have you changed anything? Are you still following all of the same diet and lifestyle, choices that we had you on?
I'm not going back. Like the way that I eat now is the way I'm planning to continue to eat. And if I do reintroduce things like dairy, like I would just go for high quality, raw dairy, things like that, which we've talked about on this platform. I am never gonna go back to toxic products. Like there's just not a need. Like now that I know like what it does to you long term, and I've learned and I've made relationships too with these brands and these people, like I trust them. I know what they're doing behind the scenes, and that's how I want to continue to live. I think change-wise, like my protocol ended, like it gets to a point where it ends. So I'm not taking all of the herbs anymore, but I am still taking the vitamins. I'm just going to keep up with those because they're just good for you. And yeah, like digestive enzymes, I'm still taking them. I was going to ask you if I need to or not.
It's probably reintroduction time. It's probably time to start considering and recalibrate.
Yeah, I've just been like so used to this that I'm like going to keep it up until I'm told like you can do it again. You can change things up.
Which I think you can. And I really do think that you've done so much work that it's like, now it's time for the reintroduction of things.
Yeah.
And then you can observe, you know how you feel, and you've been so disciplined. And I think that's also something worth noting on this episode. Like, Grace put in a lot of hard work. This wasn't just like, oh, do some tests, take some supplements. Like, this has taken a lot of discipline, changing of a lifestyle, but it's not only worth it for your acne, but for your overall body. And like you said, Lord willing, if you want kids, like your genetics, we have the ability, it's called epigenetics, if you want to get nerdy. We have the ability to affect the expression of our genes with the choices that we make on a daily basis and the chemicals that we're exposed to. And so I think like what a blessing that this happened and you knew Bethany and all this, because it's not just about your skin. It's about a ripple effect that's going to affect generations to come. Like truly, and your husband's health. And but it took a lot of hard work, right? And discipline.
Oh, so much. Even just in taking the supplements day to day, like you have to be very specific on the timing. It's like 2 hours before you eat or 30 minutes after. Like I had a schedule, like a daily schedule for like 6 months at least.
And then the full moon would come around and we'd change it up.
And do the parasite cleanse, which is fun.
I'm like, Grace, you know you're next level when you have the full moon marked on your calendar. Because I saw her at the farm dinner in April and it was like, oh yeah, we're full moon cleansing right now.
Yeah, we're like mid-influencer dinner and I'm like putting my herbs in my water. Grind don't stop.
Oh man. Yeah, I really am so proud of you for sticking with this. I know it would have been easy to give up at times. No one would have blamed you, but you didn't do that. You persevered and you have shared your journey publicly. And acne is such a personal thing, but you've been so brave in sharing this with, thousands, tens of thousands of people. And your story has been so popular amongst the Primally Pure community. Your reels that you've done, sharing your story, have been some of our most popular reels. You've gotten so much support from the community and have inspired so many people. Has it been scary at all to put your story out there, or how has that felt for you?
I don't know. I've always been pretty bold. I wear just my personality type, so not super scary. There have been a couple confrontations or conversations where I have excused my way out of. I have a lot of family members who are in the medical field, not your type of medical field. And it's maybe I just won't bring that up, or I won't say anything here. And I hope to grow in that one day to know enough to be able to speak to that and have those conversations with them. But yeah, just kind of navigating the waters, when to speak and when not to speak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So have there been any words of encouragement from people that have commented on your posts, or just anything that has really stuck with you, or has anyone reached out to you separately for advice?
So many people have, which is just exactly what I had been hoping for, and I'm just so thankful. I mean, even just yesterday at the spa, Danielle was telling me how 2 people came in this week and who were like, hey, I want to start doing what Grace did. We're so inspired by her story. And hearing people say that and telling other people about that, telling me about it, that's even more. Healing myself was big, but speaking to this world and telling everyone about it, that's really why I stuck it out too. And I remember when I was in the depths of despair with the worst acne, hiding in my room, I remember I was searching the internet, has anybody done this before? Do we know for sure this is gonna work? And there was nothing. I had no one to ask who had dealt with this before and spoken about it. And so I really do feel my story is one of the first, if not the first, to be so public and explained thoroughly. Yeah. And
and Grace has, you have done that on our blog if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
Grace has 2 really comprehensive blog posts walking through her entire journey, exactly what she did, because we talked about some of the protocol, but we didn't cover everything. You were grounding every day. You were, walking outside in the morning and getting morning sunlight in your eyes to regulate your circadian rhythm. There were so many little things that you also did just to support whole body health.
Right.
Because we talked about, your skin is a part of your whole system. And so we want to really just optimize your body as a whole, optimize your cells. And there's a lot that goes into that.
Right. So, it's a full lifestyle change. It's very layered, but it's very doable. And I think having kind of an older sister figure to walk you through that, that's what I want.
I'm glad you said older sister and not mom.
Oh gosh, no.
She's for sure older sister vibes.
I'm definitely older sister vibes.
Okay, good.
Maybe even younger sister vibes.
Oh my gosh.
But so that's the person I want to be, and I want to answer all the questions and talk to everyone about it, whether that be just grassroots people I know, whether that be Instagram DM, whether that be podcasts, blogs, whatever. I just want to, even if it's encouraging to one person, it's so worth it.
I remember you saying you were looking for stories like that, and there were some, but they were here's a few, the before picture was maybe a few pimples, and this is what I did to heal. Or maybe it was someone that had pretty bad acne, and it was oh, I went on Accutane.
Yeah, so it's lots of Accutane stories.
The transformation, the natural transformation of your skin is insane. And
being documented. That's what also people, like you said, could have before and after, but it's the process, the journey, the changes, that is significant.
Yeah, week by week photos, so you can even see what was I doing that week and why did it make such a difference in this time period. We can really nail it down because we went into it with the mindset of it being an experiment, and it turned into way more than we ever expected, but we got
We're
it.
on month 9.
You're on month 9 out of hopefully many more months of just living like this.
Grace, what would you say to anyone who finds themselves in a similar position that you were in, that is maybe feeling discouraged and embarrassed? What words of encouragement would you offer?
I think like validating the feelings first, just because a lot of people were like, you don't actually look that bad. And I kind of would like giggle because like we knew that it did look bad. Like that's just a reality check. And being able to feel
My daughter was always honest.
Oh my
My
gosh,
8-year-old.
yeah.
I remember you saying, she was like, Bethany, June told me that my skin looked better today. And so that's how I know it actually does, because she's like one of the few people that's always honest with me.
Yeah, like I would walk in the room and she'd be like, oh, you're acne. And I'd be like, oh.
Which was like, I had to talk to her about some of that.
No,
But
that's all
say it like that.
That's all kids.
yeah.
The kids at my age.
Yeah,
they just call it out.
Yeah.
They've never had a pimple.
They don't understand. And like my children's ministry at church, like the kids would swarm me. There were 3-year-olds, that's the class I would work in, and they'd be like, do you have bug bites on your face? Do you have bug bites on your face? And the group, like I was like, kids are brutal, but it's just because they don't know.
That's so
But yeah, so validating that, like, you know, it's painful and it's not like not your best look today. Like I appreciated the validation. Instead of people just pretending like, oh, it's fine and brushing it under the rug, because it wasn't fine. And like, I wanted to hear people's thoughts, especially people who had the same mode of thinking as me, like you guys. Encouragement, I think just encouragement that everybody's different. So just because something specifically worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Get tested. Like there are tests that will give you answers, and like know that it's going to take time and just be faithful to it. Like there is light at the end of the tunnel. You're not a lost cause. It's just a longer journey, but you're going to be so thankful you did it this way in the long run.
And I think like in some cases, the bare minimum, like what we started with, may work for a lot of people. But because you had these deeper issues that needed to be addressed with the medication, with the herbs, you know, with those really targeted things, you know, your situation required that testing, and probably a lot of other situations too. But I think that it's good for people to know that, you know, if they're trying everything and nothing is working, it's like, okay, it's probably time to start working with a professional.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people too don't know where to turn. So I was so thankful to know Taylor and that she was willing to help us. But like Taylor, for anyone who doesn't just know of a functional medicine provider, like how would someone go about finding someone to work with?
I would say no matter what state you're in, there are 2 really great resources. It's ifm.org and A4M, and you can go and find a practitioner near you. And I feel like if you've done all the things and you're eating clean and ditch the toxic products and all that, then definitely it's time to like try to get some answers. I'm not saying go here right away, unless you have the means and you're motivated and you're like, I've done all the things for a long time, let's do it. But yeah, you can find local providers. And then something I'm so passionate about is, you know, I've had my private practice for years. And this was actually part of my story too. I had really bad acne due to gut issues, a lot of other things too. But it was something that's like, so I'm so passionate about because I've walked it. You know?
Right.
And so for me, I remember being the desperate patient, not knowing what to do, literally searching on the internet late at night, getting down rabbit trails. And so yeah, I'm so passionate about it. So working with a one-on-one provider is amazing. But you know, I had my private practice for years and we could only work with people in Texas. And I just felt so limited, you know, as my blog grew and my Instagram, and I'm so passionate about education, and people would reach out about testing or access to things. And so God put it on my heart to create like a little community that, you know, it doesn't just have to be patients. It's not a private practice. It's not what it is, but it's an online community where like-minded people can connect. And within that community, we have access to lab testing, you know. And I remember I had a huge wait list at my practice, and I remember thinking, someone approached me like, have you ever thought about a program? And I was like, nope, that's hokey. There's no one size fits all. I'm never doing that.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it and prayed about it, I was like, okay, I would only do a gut program if I could do a stool test and still personalize protocols. And so I did end up creating a gut program because it was like, okay, I can't work with everyone one-on-one, and I can't do a one size fits all program because, as y'all have learned from Grace's story, it is so personalized. And so through that gut program, the only way I was able to say I can do this is through educating through all the modules of toxins and diet and all of that. But the biggest thing for me was we have to do a stool test, and everybody has to get personalized protocols. And so, you know, we do offer that now. Like, did you make your way through the gut program?
It's amazing, you guys. If you haven't done it,
through?
well, we're like in the middle of it because my husband and I, we just got married, and like he has his own health journey we're walking. And so we were like, let's do it together. And we've been like taking notes. Like it's like a thing, like weekly nights where we go through the Taylor Dukes Get Your Gut Right program and we sit with our little notepads and we like take notes, and it's so good and so fun.
That's
like
so
you learn
cute.
so much. It's fun.
But yeah, it was just like, it's like I'm so passionate about getting people access to testing, and then we have nurse practitioners, nutritional therapy practitioners within that community that can do consults to say, hey, let's personalize this or let's tweak this. And so, but if you want to work with one-on-one with a provider, those two websites are great resources to try and find someone in your area, because sometimes you can work with nutritionists and naturopaths in different states, but when it comes to like a true like nurse practitioner, physician assistant, MD, they do have to be licensed in the state in which you live. So.
I think that's really good advice. I want to touch on genetics again, too. You mentioned that earlier, and I think that's such an important point, that your genes are not your destiny. So we're all prone to different things, but that doesn't mean that we are destined to them. And I remember going to a dermatologist in high school for my acne and asking, is there anything else I could do, anything I could change, anything I could change about my diet or lifestyle other than just taking these medications? She looked at me and she said, no, your acne is genetic and there's nothing you can do to change it. And we, of course, know that is not true now with epigenetics, but I think a lot of people still see it that way.
Yeah. I've gotten things like that too. And it's just so disheartening when you're in that room and you're told that. And it's so confusing when you get out of that room and you hear that there actually are things. And you're like, why did they say that? Like, how did they not know? Right.
Well, it's hard when you're the patient and you're deferring to the expert. You feel like you're at the mercy of them, and I want to be the first to say, I am not knocking medical professionals. It's our medical system, and I was conventionally trained, I had not gone this functional medicine route if it had not for me and my story and getting sick. I was desperate, and I actually thought it was hocus pocus. My parents were trying to take me to this integrative, and I was like, no, that is so weird. I didn't learn about that in nursing school. That's not evidence-based. And sometimes it takes a lot of these integrative doctors, they're sick, and that's how they get into this because the medical system failed them. And so I'm the first to say I don't knock our medical system. It does frustrate me, but I don't knock our providers. They're not taught that, And so unfortunately, they don't know about the connections to these things. But what I always tell people is advocate for yourself. Find a provider that does know about the gut-skin connection and that does care about the way that food can affect our body and does know about epigenetics, because they are out there. But yeah, you're not going to find it through your traditional specialist. And unfortunately, they just don't know. They're not trained. They don't have the tools in their tool belt. But when they really when they come down hard on patients and they're like, there's no evidence, that's what frustrates me. I'm like, at least be open-minded, because if you don't have the answers, then there has to be something else out there.
Well, thank you both so much for coming here, for joining us today. Grace, thank you again for being so willing to share your story with the world. Where can people find out more, follow along with you, and find some of the content that you have created for Primally Pure?
Yeah, well, definitely Primally Pure Instagram at Primally Pure. My personal Instagram, I want to start posting more and have been at This Is Grace Harvey. And my blog posts are really comprehensive, like Bethany mentioned earlier. So link in the show notes.
Link in the show notes. It's on purelifeblog.com. We'll link those. You also have a great highlight on our Instagram that walks through a lot of your journey as well. Yeah. And Taylor, what about you? Where can people find you and learn more about you and functional medicine?
Yeah, so I have an online website. I'm really passionate. We have a blog, everything from recipes, but a lot of it's educational content. And so just taylordukeswellness.com. I have an online store of our own supplements, and it's shop.
Which are amazing.
Shop.taylordukeswellness.com.
Tried and tested.
She's living proof. And then, of course, I have an Instagram at Taylor Dukes Wellness. So I'm just so passionate about education and equipping people. And though I won't be able to work with everyone one-on-one, and I've kind of just made peace with that a long time ago. It was hard for me because I'm a helper.
Right.
There are so many free resources that we provide, even with our, it's not free. It's $39 a month, which is pretty cheap.
But it's so
our online community. I'm just like, how can we get creative to help equip people and support them? And so,
yeah. And even just on your Instagram and your email list, you're always sharing so much good information. Thank you both.
Yes, of course.